Hello, welcome to my podcast. This is James, and I am bowling for my life. This podcast is meant to be used for when driving in your car or just having a moment of relaxation where you don't want to visually stimulate yourself, but have something a little more in depth, something that where you can listen and go in depth in regards to helping yourself understand more deep concepts of success and bowling and some of the things that I've been working on to increase those successes. So, with a lot of my research and things that I've been working on, I have been really venturing into neurochemistry, understanding the mental biology and how the brain works with reward pathways and success and just the whole mental side of success, and where a lot of people do not realize just how complicated and simplistic humans are. And I know that that's confusing, but essentially what I have learned through my research and what has helped me in my bowling game from a very deep spiritual mental aspect is understanding that everything we do from a human existence, everything we do is driven by dopamine. And understanding dopamine's relationship with norepinephrine and understanding these neurotransmitters and how they affect your brain and reward pathways and how to control your ability to create more desire for success and being able to stay in the moment without causing yourself struggle. So, in this podcast, in this audio session, I want to talk about some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that's allowed me to experiment out in league to create unique situations where people would find it hard to believe some of the successes that I've had out on the lanes. And I'm willing to share that with you guys because I deeply care about sharing and teaching, and that gives me great pleasure. So essentially, we'll just get started with understanding dopamine and how it works. You know, our brains are extremely old, and we're designed to seek pleasure and to survive. And over time, the adaptation of our brains has changed because of stimulation available to us, but also perceptually and contextually how we live in the world around us. And being able to understand where motivation and desire is deeply affected by levels of dopamine in the brain and norepinephrine. And being able to allow yourself to stay in the moment when you're performing or doing anything at a high level, and being able to completely separate thoughts, completely separate your mind from body, and also separating your mind from history or the future. So, and the best way is to fully understand just how humans work. You know, our brains are constantly designed to bring awareness to potential dangers. Where a lot of people in the bowling world, potential dangers is losing to this particular bowler, or bowling on this particular pair, or not being able to feel 100%, or being insecure or not confident about a ball, or not having the chance to change your tape out, or just not being confident in your ability altogether. These types of things cause these natural autonomic reactions where you find pain points and you're not allowing yourself to be in the moment because you are thinking about the future. And a part of that also comes with overthinking certain situations. Being a classic overthinker myself, extremely analytical, extremely invested in getting to the finer details of everything, I have had to learn to master, and I don't feel I've mastered it 100%, but learning how to master the ability to not celebrate your successes. Being able to regulate dopamine. Because dopamine is what allows you to feel like you have arrived, to feel like you are on top of the world. And the problem with dopamine is that when there is an up, there is a down that comes shortly after. For example, if I go back and look at some of my honor scores that I've been shooting over the last 6 months, I'll go and shoot, 2 or 3 honor scores, and then I have a 2-month. I'll take 2 months off where I don't really shoot anything, and then 2 months I shoot more honor scores, then 2 months off, then 2 months on. It literally is almost like I am bowling really well. You get high on your supply, and then after that comes the natural decline, the postpartum dopamine depletion, and what causes you to then not be happy with successes after that, because your dopamine reactions in your brain really work with the previous high that you had before that. So for example, some person would say, well, James, you shot 858, so an 848 wouldn't feel the same anymore. And that is very true from a very technical standpoint. But the reality is, if I was regulating my amount of dopamine success from that night and allowing myself to not indulge into that extreme release of dopamine, then I have an opportunity to not get myself trapped where I'm going to find myself not only working less, but getting soft when it comes to keeping goals and dreams on your shoulder. Keeping that chip on your shoulder, as some would say. So, excuse me. Understanding dopamine and how dopamine affects your entire contextual world is incredibly important. And dopamine is something that's constantly going on in your brain. And being able to understand how to change this regulatory pattern slightly to where it benefits you from a success standpoint is incredibly, incredibly important if you want to really maximize your potential. And when I say this, what this means is that you need to be able to perform at your best, but not react to it. And that is very hard for people, because what is happening is they have hijacked their own reward systems in their brain. Those neural pathways have been hijacked. And what this means is that you are telling yourself, in a way, potentially, that you are going to be happy once you obtain a specific score or a specific item or a specific credential. A lot of people put their happiness and wrap it into something that they obtain, like a finish line. And they contextualize happiness with after you do something. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble. Being able to fall in love and be able to regulate your dopamine and chemical reactions in your brain for happiness to be parallel with the process of becoming great is where I think that is where the success of so many of the greatest athletes in our time has been rooted from. When you start doing the research and really start learning, you start seeing that at the end of the day, humans do everything for dopamine, happiness, and survival. It does not mean that Tiger Woods is necessarily special. Tiger Woods is a product. Walter Ray Williams Jr. is a product of being in love with the process. Yes, you can have a desire to win, but setting your goals and aspirations and work ethic around the process of achieving something gives you an infinite supply and resource of dopamine highs and lows that is sustainable and can develop happiness and keep you happy long term. And I know that this may seem just very interesting because for some of you, you may not really fully understand what I am talking about. But understanding that dopamine is the universal currency for happiness, and understanding neurotransmitters, and understanding how chemical exchanges in your brain is what tells you how important something is. Money does not matter. Cars, girlfriends, candy, none of that matters. The dopamine in your brain tells you when it matters, when it doesn't matter. And that is where we kind of lead into the next part of this discussion, and that's how do you get on the right path of focusing on becoming great? How do you hijack your excitatory systems and be able to take the mental aspect and the reward centers of bowling and being able to manufacture the zone? Something that I've been working very hard on. Being able to manufacture the zone, putting yourself in a mental state of focus and bliss where you're 100% confident, but you're not showing it. You are just there and you are just performing. You are not too high, you're not too low, you're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about the past. You are literally in a floating state of euphoria while you perform at the highest level. That is called the zone. And with this part of the podcast, it's how do we manufacture that state? Well, there's lots of different ways. If you dive into research, you'll learn that understanding vibrations and understanding energy transfer, understanding how the world works when it comes to harnessing energy and being able to stay focused on energy transfer. Have you ever noticed that you'd be bowling league one night and let's say the first game you completely destroy the other team? Your team is on fire, you guys carry every shot, and everything just goes to this whole different level. And then the next game, it seems like the momentum shifts a whole different way. That, I would say, is completely a part of not understanding how to keep and capture the vibrational energy necessary to keep the momentum, the winning process on your side of the court, on your side of the pair. And the way that this happens is because after you win the game, everybody gets, because most people are reward driven, so they don't feel any excitement unless they achieve a specific goal. So let's say the team wins by 200 pens and you took every point and you guys just blew them out of the water. Well, the majority of your teammates is going to have a huge hit of dopamine. That huge hit of dopamine is going to cause a relaxational state of bliss and euphoria, which will take the desire and hunger and discipline out of maintaining the strategy of keeping the focus and energy in your side. There are other things going on here than just dopamine. There is a sense of energy. And it's very interesting in how energy moves back and forth and how some people can harness this energy almost at will. But that's for a different podcast. But being able to stay in the moment, not thinking about how good you are or how not good you are, throwing every ball, watching the ball go down the lane, focusing on the way the ball rolls through the pocket, and being in the moment. But not being in the moment, but truly being in the moment, where nothing in the world matters. Nothing matters but tonight, this moment, this ball, but also keeping your anxiety at bay. And that is where we get into the biggest particular problem with this whole concept, is the anxiety, the fight or flight, the worry of being defeated. And where most people starve their own successes through the anxiousness and trying to predetermine or predict how the night is going to go for league or a tournament or whatever. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble. The way that I look at things and the way that I have bowled, especially in all of my leagues, has a lot to do with me just staying in the moment, staying focused on the current task, and that is watching the ball reaction and throwing every single shot at the highest level of intention and the highest level of focus. And not even a mental focus where you're aware, but at just a spiritual level of really, really letting yourself go to the process and throwing the shot absolutely the best you can throw it. And just putting yourself in the moment, focusing and visualizing your shot, and just going deep. And going so deep where almost no one is even there bowling with you. Focusing yourself, hyper-focusing yourself to that state of deep trance and focus is what yields these high-level scores and these consistent high-level results that some of the greatest bowlers in the world possess. It's not just the tactile learning. It's not just the physical ability. There is a whole nother side of mental approach to every sport that really is the defining difference of successes in those people. And that's where this podcast can help you from a deep mental standpoint focus on making good decisions, keeping vibrational energy where it needs to be, and maximizing your full potential to do great things in the sport of bowling. Hopefully, this podcast, this audio, really helped you understand some things about your game. I don't have all the answers for you, but I will tell you that as you listen to this podcast, you will start to come up with your own answers. And you will start to really figure things out. So, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, this episode of Mental Focus. And if you would please like, subscribe, and share. And if you would like to discuss this further with me, you can leave me a comment or you can direct message me and we can discuss this further for your particular need. But thank you so much for watching or listening, and I wish you the best of luck as you continue to grow in the sport we all love. Have a great day.